The lecture hall of the Galactic Xenobiology Institute buzzed with the soft chittering, warbling, and electronic beeping that passed for conversation among the diverse student body. Professor Kelthera, a graceful silithai with crystalline skin that refracted the overhead lights into rainbow patterns, called for attention with a melodic tone that resonated through the universal translators. "Today, class, we continue our study of Terran fauna," she announced, her voice carrying the scholarly enthusiasm that had made her famous across 3 star systems. "As we've established, Earth, or Terra, as the humans call it, presents us with a fascinating paradox." A student near the back, a gelatinous blobian named Glup7, raised a pseudopod. "Professor, could you clarify the paradox? The humans seem so fragile." Marcus Chen, the only human in the advanced xenobiology course, looked up from his datapad where he'd been taking notes in both Standard Galactic and Mandarin. At 23, he was young for a graduate student, but his dual degrees in marine biology and xenological studies had earned him a spot in the prestigious program. His presence had initially caused quite a stir. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved FTL travel only 50 years prior. "An excellent question, Glup7," Professor Kelthera replied, her skin shifting to a pleased amber hue. "You see, Class Earth is classified as a Class-12 Deathworld, one of the most hostile planetary environments in our catalog systems. Yet humans, the dominant species, appear remarkably, well, soft." A ripple of agreement went through the classroom. Zixtai, an insectoid Kytherian with compound eyes that sparkled like jewels, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "They have no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no natural weapons whatsoever. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears. They require constant hydration and regular feeding cycles." "Precisely." The professor's excitement made her skin pulse with bright colors. "They also require a narrow range of atmospheric conditions, have poor natural sensory capabilities compared to most species, and lack any form of natural camouflage or environmental adaptation." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his specially designed chair. He'd grown used to being discussed like a specimen, but it never stopped being weird. Around him, his classmates nodded sagely, as if his very presence confirmed their theories about human frailty. Vornax, a towering crystalline being from a high-gravity world, resonated in his deep, harmonic voice. "It suggests that Earth's classification as a death world may be in error. Perhaps the humans simply evolved in an unusually benign environment and the dangerous reputation is exaggerated." "Or," added Squeaks, whose actual name was an ultrasonic frequency that most species couldn't pronounce, "they survived through pure luck and are actually one of the more fragile species in the galaxy." Marcus bit his tongue. He'd learned early in his galactic education that jumping to humanity's defense made him seem biased. Better to let the evidence speak for itself, though listening to his species being dismissed as lucky and fragile rankled more than he cared to admit. Professor Kelthera manipulated the holographic display, showing a rotating image of Earth from space, blue and white and achingly beautiful against the black void. "What we do know is that humans have spread rapidly since joining the galactic community. They've established colonies on 17 worlds, including some that other species found too challenging to settle. Adaptability through technology," Glup7 suggested, his gelatinous form pulsing thoughtfully. "They overcome their biological limitations through engineering." "A reasonable hypothesis," the professor agreed, "though it doesn't explain some of the more puzzling aspects of human behavior. They voluntarily engage in activities that would be considered suicidal by most species standards, extreme sports as they call them. They also show remarkable psychological resilience in crisis situations." Zixtai's compound eyes fixed on Marcus. "Perhaps our human classmate could provide insight? Marcus, do you engage in these extreme sports?" All eyes and optical sensors and compound visual organs turned to Marcus. He felt heat rise in his cheeks, the human stress response that his classmates had learned to recognize as embarrassment. "I used to surf," he said quietly, "and I've been scuba diving since I was 12. The classroom fell silent. Several species translation devices made confused chirping sounds. "You?" voluntarily entered Earth's vast water bodies? Squeak's voice hit a frequency that made everyone wince. The same water bodies that contain the predatory creatures we studied last week? Marcus nodded, not seeing the big deal. The ocean's beautiful. It's peaceful down there. Vornax's crystalline structure actually darkened with what Marcus had learned to recognize as fear. You descended into an environment where you cannot breathe, surrounded by creatures that could consume you? Well, when you put it like that. Marcus trailed off, realizing how his casual hobby might sound to beings from worlds where the most dangerous local fauna was equivalent to Earth's sheep. Professor Kelthera's skin was cycling through colors rapidly, a sign of intense academic excitement. This is precisely what I mean, class. Humans describe these activities as relaxing or fun. The disconnect between their apparent physical limitations and their behavioral fearlessness is extraordinary. The lecture continued with discussions of human hobbies that left most of the class convinced that humans were either collectively insane or suffering from some species-wide inability to properly assess risk. Marcus found himself torn between amusement and frustration. They weren't wrong exactly, but they were missing something fundamental. As the class filed out, chattering in their various languages about the Terran paradox, Marcus hung back. He approached Professor Kelthera, who was organizing her notes. "Professor," he said carefully, "I think there might be a misunderstanding about Earth's classification." Her skin shifted to an encouraging green. "Oh, please, share your thoughts." Marcus hesitated. "It's just, you keep talking about humans like we're an anomaly on a death world. But what if we're not the anomaly? What if we're exactly what a death world produces?" The professor's colors stilled. "I'm not sure I follow. You've studied Earth's life forms, right? All the cute ones. The dolphins, the elephants, the pandas. Of course. Remarkable diversity, though most appear quite docile." Marcus smiled, but there was something in his expression that made Professor Kelthera's skin shift toward cautious yellow. "Professor, tomorrow could you bring up the ocean predators again? I think my classmates might benefit from learning about sharks." "Sharks?" The word came out as a question, the translator struggling with the concept. "Just trust me. I think it might change how you see the Terran paradox." As Marcus left the lecture hall, Professor Kelthera found herself staring at the holographic display of Earth, its blue oceans suddenly seeming less serene and more mysterious. She made a note in her research log: "Investigate sharks, human recommendation for understanding Terran evolutionary pressure." She had no idea that this simple note would fundamentally change how the galactic community viewed both Earth and humanity. The next day's lecture hall was fuller than usual. Word had spread through the Xenobiology department that Professor Kelthera was going to discuss sharks at the human students' recommendation. The general consensus was that it would be another example of humans' inexplicable fondness for dangerous activities. Perhaps these sharks were some sort of extreme sports equipment. Marcus arrived early and took his usual seat, trying to suppress a grin. He'd spent the previous evening in his quarters, preparing a special presentation of his own, just in case the professor needed backup. His roommate, a peaceful Zalithian named Harmony of Growing Trees, had been horrified by some of the videos Marcus had shown him. "Marcus, friend," Harmony had said, his flower petals wilting with distress. "These creatures cannot be real. Surely this is some form of human fiction." "Oh, they're real," Marcus had assured him. "And that's just the beginning." Now, as Professor Kelthera called the class to order, Marcus noticed the anticipatory energy in the room. His classmates had no idea what was coming. "Yesterday," Professor Kelthera began, her skin a professional blue-green, "our human colleague suggested we examine sharks to better understand Terran evolutionary pressures. I must admit, I approached this research with some skepticism." She manipulated the holographic display, and suddenly the peaceful blue ocean from yesterday was replaced by something that made half the class immediately recoil. A great white shark, 15 feet of pure predatory perfection, hung suspended in the center of the room. The silence was deafening. Glup 7 was the first to speak, his gelatinous form quivering. That is not real. Please tell me that is not real. Professor Kelthera's skin had shifted to an unsettled purple. I had the same reaction. Class, meet Carcharodon carcharias, commonly known as the great white shark. This specimen measures approximately 4.6 meters in length and weighs nearly 2 tons. Zixtai's compound eyes were fixed on the hologram's teeth. Those dental structures. Ah yes, the professor said, zooming in on the shark's mouth. Sharks possess multiple rows of teeth, continuously replaced throughout their lifetime. A single shark can shed up to 35,000 teeth in its lifespan. Each tooth is designed for maximum cutting efficiency. Squeaks made a sound that didn't translate but conveyed universal horror. The bite force, Professor Kelthera continued, consulting her notes with visibly shaking hands, measures approximately 1.8 tons per square inch. For comparison, that's roughly equivalent to the crushing power of a Class 7 industrial fabricator. Vornax's crystalline structure was resonating at a frequency that suggested deep disturbance. This creature, it hunts? Oh yes. Marcus spoke up for the first time, unable to keep quiet any longer. Great whites are apex predators. They hunt seals, fish, sometimes other sharks. They can smell blood from miles away, detect electrical impulses from other creatures' muscle contractions, and launch themselves completely out of the water when attacking surface prey. The hologram shifted to show exactly that. A great white breaching, its massive form exploding from the ocean in a spray of water and primal terror. Several students made sounds of distress. Glup 7 actually tried to hide behind his desk. But surely, Zixtai managed, humans avoid these creatures? Your settlements must be built far from their habitats. Marcus's grin widened. Actually, they live in most of Earth's oceans. And humans? Well, we swim with them. The translation devices struggled with the concept, producing static and confused bleeps. Swim with them. Squeak's voice had risen to near ultrasonic levels. Oh yeah, cage diving is a popular tourist activity. Though some humans freedive with sharks, no cage, no protection. Marcus was enjoying this far too much. I've been diving with reef sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks. My uncle actually studies great whites for a living. He swims with them regularly. The classroom had gone completely silent except for the sound of harmony of growing trees' petals dropping to the floor. Professor Kelthera's skin was cycling through colors so rapidly it was making everyone dizzy. Marcus, are you telling us that humans voluntarily enter the same environment as these killing machines? Marcus supplied helpfully. Pretty much. But wait, there's more. He stood up and gestured to the professor. May I? Still in shock, she nodded and transferred control of the holographic display to Marcus's datapad. The great white disappeared, replaced by something that looked like it had crawled out of everyone's worst nightmare. 20 feet long, with a flattened, undulating body and a serrated, sword-like projection from its nose. This is a sawfish, Marcus announced cheerfully. They're critically endangered, so humans are working really hard to protect them. The class stared at the bizarre creature with its weapon-like rostrum lined with razor-sharp teeth. And this, Marcus continued, switching the image, is a tiger shark. They'll eat basically anything. Fish, seals, turtles, birds, other sharks, license plates, tires, whatever. They're called the wastebasket of the ocean. The tiger shark's distinctive stripes and massive, rounded head filled the display. Hammerhead sharks, Marcus went on, barely pausing for breath as a bizarre creature with eyes on the ends of grotesque head extensions appeared. Use their heads like metal detectors to find prey buried in sand. Bull sharks can swim in both salt and fresh water, so they've been found hundreds of miles up rivers. They're also incredibly aggressive and territorial. Mako sharks are the fastest sharks in the ocean. They can swim up to 60 kilometers per hour and jump up to 6 meters out of the water. With each new image, the class seemed to shrink further into their seats. But my personal favorite, Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone of someone sharing a cherished memory, is the thresher shark. They hunt by using their incredibly long tail like a whip to stun schools of fish. The thresher shark appeared, its tail nearly as long as its body, elegant and terrifying in equal measure. Glup 7 had managed to make himself nearly invisible by flattening against the floor. How do humans exist on the same planet as these creatures? Marcus paused, the question seeming to catch him off guard. For a moment, his enthusiasm dimmed, replaced by something more thoughtful. "You know what's funny?" he said quietly. "Sharks have been around for over 400 million years. They survived the mass extinction that killed the dinosaurs. They're perfectly adapted predators, virtually unchanged for millions of years." He looked around the room at his terrified classmates. "And humans? We're so new we barely register in geological time. We've only been around for about 300,000 years. But in that tiny sliver of time, we've gone from hiding in caves to swimming with sharks for fun." The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the environmental systems. "You want to know how humans coexist with sharks?" Marcus asked, his voice carrying a new edge. "We don't just coexist. We're the reason most shark species are endangered. Not because they're hunting us, shark attacks are incredibly rare, but because we're hunting them." Professor Kelthera's skin had gone completely white. "You're saying that humans are more dangerous to these apex predators than they are to humans?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Humans kill about 100 million sharks per year. Sharks kill maybe 10 humans annually, usually by accident." The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Vornax's resonant voice was barely a whisper. What else lives in Earth's oceans?" Marcus's smile returned, but now it looked different. Less innocent. More predatory. "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. Tomorrow, let's talk about what lives in the deep ocean. You know, the parts where there's no sunlight and the pressure would crush most of your ships." As the class filed out in stunned silence, Professor Kelthera remained at her desk, staring at the holographic display where a great white shark continued its eternal patrol. She finally understood what Marcus had meant about the Terran paradox. Humans weren't the anomaly on a Deathworld. They were the thing that made it a Deathworld. The Xenobiology department had been buzzing for 2 days straight. Professor Kelthera's shark lecture had become legendary, spreading through academic channels across the galactic community faster than a quantum entanglement cascade. By the time the third class session arrived, the lecture hall was packed beyond capacity, with holographic attendance links streaming to universities on dozens of worlds. Marcus had become something of a celebrity overnight, though not necessarily the kind he'd wanted. Students from other departments kept approaching him with expressions that ranged from fascination to barely concealed terror. His roommate Harmony of Growing Trees had taken to sleeping in the common area, claiming that Marcus's quarters now gave him bad growth energy. As Marcus entered the lecture hall, he noticed several new faces among the crowd. Dr. Vexheim, the head of the Dangerous Worlds Research Division, sat in the front row, his 6 eyes fixed intently on Marcus. Behind him, a delegation from the Galactic Safety Council had set up recording equipment. Professor Kelthera called for attention, her skin a professional but noticeably more subdued blue-green than usual. "Today," she announced, "we delve deeper into Terran marine ecosystems. Specifically, the abyssal zones where sunlight never penetrates and pressure reaches extreme levels." The holographic display shifted to show a cross-section of Earth's oceans, with depth markers descending into increasingly dark blue zones. "At depths below 200 meters, we enter what humans call the twilight zone," the professor continued. "At 1,000 meters, the midnight zone. And beyond 4,000 meters, the abyssal zone, where pressure exceeds 400 times Earth's surface atmospheric pressure." Glup 7, who had managed to return to class despite his previous trauma, quivered uncertainly. "Surely nothing lives at such depths?" Marcus raised his hand. "Actually, some of the most interesting life on Earth lives down there. Professor, may I?" Professor Kelthera nodded, though her skin shifted toward cautious yellow. The previous 2 classes had taught her that Marcus's enthusiasm for Earth's fauna was directly proportional to how terrified her students would become. The display changed to show something that looked like it had been designed by a committee of evil engineers. A fish with a massive mouth filled with needle-sharp teeth, a bioluminescent lure dangling from its forehead, and dead-looking black eyes. "This is an anglerfish," Marcus said conversationally. "They live in the deep ocean where it's completely dark, so they make their own light to attract prey. When something comes to investigate the pretty light," he gestured to the creature's gaping maw. "Those teeth are angled backward, so once something goes in, it's not coming back out." The collective shudder that went through the audience was almost visible. "But the really interesting thing about anglerfish," Marcus continued, warming to his subject, "is their reproductive strategy. The male is much smaller than the female, and when he finds her, he bites onto her body and literally fuses with her, becoming a permanent appendage that provides sperm when needed." Dr. Vexheim made a note on his datapad with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as the universal gesture for, "How is this planet even real?" "Of course," Marcus went on, "anglerfish are practically cuddly compared to some deep-sea predators. This is a viperfish." The new image showed a creature that looked like someone had crossed a snake with a piranha and then put it through a horror movie filter. Its fangs were so large it couldn't close its mouth completely, and its body was lined with bioluminescent spots that pulsed in hypnotic patterns. Viperfish can unhinge their jaws like snakes and swallow prey larger than themselves. They're also capable of rapid vertical migrations, traveling from depths of 1,500 meters to near the surface in pursuit of food. Squeaks made a sound that the translators rendered as existential despair. "But my personal favorite deep-sea predator," Marcus said, his eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm, "is the goblin shark." The image that appeared made several students physically recoil. It looked like something that had crawled out of a cosmic horror story. A pink, flabby creature with a hideously extendable jaw that could shoot forward to snatch prey. "Goblin sharks are living fossils," Marcus explained. "They've been virtually unchanged for 125 million years. When they attack, their jaw can extend out nearly to the length of their snout. They're perfectly adapted for ambush predation in the deep ocean." Zixdai's compound eyes were fixed on the hologram with horrified fascination. "These creatures, they hunt in perpetual darkness, under crushing pressure that would kill most known life forms?" "Exactly," Marcus beamed. "But wait, it gets better. Some deep-sea creatures don't just hunt. They're walking ecosystems of horror. Take the vampire squid. Despite its name, the creature that appeared was somehow worse than what the name suggested. It looked like an octopus that had been turned inside out, with spines lining its arms and the ability to literally turn itself inside out when threatened. The vampire squid lives in oxygen minimum zones where most life can't survive. When threatened, it can turn itself inside out and cover its body in protective spines. It also shoots out bioluminescent mucus to confuse predators. The room was so quiet that the environmental systems sounded loud by comparison. "And then there's the giant isopod," Marcus continued, seemingly oblivious to his audience's growing horror. The image shifted to show something that looked like a pill bug the size of a small dog, with dead black eyes and segmented armor plating. "These guys are related to terrestrial pill bugs, but they grow up to 50 centimeters long and can survive for years without eating. They're basically living tanks that scavenge on the ocean floor." Dr. Vexheim had stopped taking notes and was just staring at Marcus with all 6 eyes. "But you know what's really impressive about deep-sea life?" Marcus asked, his tone shifting slightly. "It's not just that these creatures survive in conditions that would kill most life forms in the galaxy. It's that humans go down there to visit them." The translation devices made confused noises. "Deep-sea submersibles," Marcus explained. "Humans build vehicles that can withstand the crushing pressure and descend to the deepest parts of the ocean. The deepest point on Earth is called Challenger Deep, about 11,000 meters down. The pressure there is over 1,000 times Earth's surface pressure." Professor Kelthera's skin was cycling through colors rapidly. "And humans have been there?" "Oh yes, multiple times. In fact, humans regularly send both manned and unmanned vehicles to explore the deep ocean. We've mapped the entire ocean floor, cataloged thousands of deep-sea species, and established permanent research stations." Marcus paused, looking around the room at his increasingly pale audience. You see, the thing you all keep missing is that humans didn't just survive on a death world. We conquered it. Every environment you can imagine. From the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountains, from frozen polar regions to scorching deserts, humans live there. The room was so still it felt like time had stopped. And the creatures that seem so terrifying to you? Most of them are afraid of us. We're the apex predator of apex predators. We don't just coexist with Earth's deadly fauna. We're the reason most of it is going extinct. Vornax's crystalline structure was resonating at a frequency that suggested deep philosophical disturbance. But humans appear so fragile. How is this possible? Marcus smiled, and for the first time, his classmates saw something in that smile that made them understand why sharks might be afraid of humans. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, he said quietly. The most dangerous predator Earth has ever produced. The one that made all those other creatures afraid. He paused, looking around the room. Us. As the class filed out in stunned silence, Dr. Vexheim approached Professor Kelthera. Professor, he said, his voice carrying the weight of official concern. I need to file a report with the Galactic Council. Our threat assessment protocols for human colonization may need significant revision. Professor Kelthera looked at the holographic display, where a goblin shark's hideous jaw was frozen in mid-extension. Doctor, she said quietly, I'm beginning to think our threat assessment protocols for everything may need revision. If this is what lives in Earth's oceans, what does that say about the species that makes them endangered? Neither of them noticed Marcus pausing at the door, his enhanced human hearing picking up their conversation perfectly. His smile widened just a fraction. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Word had spread beyond the academic community. The lecture hall was now equipped with additional holographic projectors to accommodate remote viewers from across the galactic community. Representatives from dozens of species had requested access to what was being called the human revelation. The Galactic Council had dispatched an official observer, and even the notoriously reclusive Void Walkers had sent a delegate. Marcus arrived to find his path to the classroom blocked by a small crowd of students and faculty. Some looked at him with fascination, others with something approaching fear. He'd had to change dormitory rooms after finding a shrine of protective crystals outside his door, courtesy of his anxious roommate. As he made his way to his seat, Marcus noticed the tension in the room was palpable. Professor Kelthera's skin was cycling through colors so rapidly it was making people dizzy, and even the usually unflappable Dr. Vexheim seemed agitated. Today, Professor Kelthera announced once the room had settled, we conclude our examination of Terran evolutionary pressures by studying the species that has dominated all others, Homo sapiens. She manipulated the display to show a rotating image of a human figure, anatomically modern, unremarkable by most galactic standards. As we established in our first session, humans appear to be poorly adapted for survival on a death world. No natural weapons, minimal sensory capabilities, fragile physiology. Yet they are Earth's undisputed apex species. Glup 7, who had somehow managed to attend despite his previous traumatic experiences, quivered uncertainly. Perhaps they succeeded through cooperation? Hive mind species often overcome individual limitations through collective action. Marcus shook his head. Humans aren't a hive mind. We're actually pretty individualistic. Sometimes to a fault. Tool use, then, suggested Zixtai. Many species leverage technology to overcome biological limitations. That's part of it, Marcus agreed. But not the way you think. He stood up and the room went quiet. Over the past 3 days, his classmates had learned that when Marcus stood up, something terrifying was about to be revealed about Earth. Professor, may I show them something? Professor Kelthera nodded, though her skin had shifted to cautious yellow. Marcus took control of the holographic display, and suddenly the room was filled with the image of a human persistence hunting scene. A group of early humans running steadily across an African plain, following a large antelope. This is how humans hunted for most of our evolutionary history, Marcus explained. It's called persistence hunting. We don't run fast. Lots of animals are faster than us. But we run far. The hologram showed the antelope sprinting away, leaving the humans far behind. Then it showed the humans still running hours later, following tracks, while the exhausted antelope had stopped to rest. Humans are the best endurance runners in the animal kingdom, Marcus continued. We can run for hours in heat that would kill most predators. Our prey would sprint away, then have to stop to cool down. But humans would just keep coming. The hologram showed the inevitable conclusion. Exhausted prey finally collapsing as the still jogging humans caught up. We hunted megafauna to extinction across multiple continents using nothing but our ability to just keep going. Squeaks made a sound that the translators couldn't process. But that's just the beginning, Marcus said, warming to his subject. Humans are also what we call pursuit predators. We don't just hunt animals. We hunt concepts. The display changed to show human achievements across history, agriculture, writing, mathematics, medicine, spaceflight. When humans want something, we don't just try once and give up. We keep trying. For generations, if necessary. We call it problem solving. But really, it's just predation directed at abstract concepts. Dr. Vexheim leaned forward, all 6 eyes focused intently. Can you give specific examples? Marcus's smile was that unsettling expression his classmates had learned to fear. Humans wanted to fly. Birds could fly, but humans couldn't. So we studied birds for centuries, tried thousands of different approaches, killed ourselves in countless failed experiments. Did we give up? No. We kept trying until we figured it out. Now humans fly better than birds. The hologram showed the progression from early flying machines to modern spacecraft. We wanted to go underwater. Fish could breathe water, but humans couldn't. So we invented diving bells, submarines, scuba gear, underwater habitats. Now humans explore parts of the ocean that most marine life can't reach. We wanted to cure diseases. Diseases killed us, but we refused to accept that. So we developed medicine, surgery, vaccines, genetic therapy. We've eliminated diseases that plagued humanity for millennia. The room was completely silent now, but it was a different kind of silence than before. This wasn't horror. This was the dawning realization of something vast and implacable. We wanted to understand the universe. It was vast and mysterious, but that didn't stop us. So we built telescopes, particle accelerators, space probes. We figured out quantum mechanics, relativity, the structure of DNA. Marcus gestured to the room full of alien students. We wanted to meet other intelligent life. You all lived impossibly far away, but we didn't let that stop us. So we developed faster-than-light travel in 50 years. 50 years from not knowing you existed to sitting in your classrooms. Professor Kelthera's skin had gone completely white. Marcus, are you saying that humans treat problems the same way persistence hunters treat prey? I'm saying that humans don't really distinguish between the two, Marcus replied. When we encounter something that seems impossible, we don't see an insurmountable barrier. We see a challenge. Something to be hunted down and solved. He looked around the room at his increasingly uncomfortable audience. You've all been wondering how humans can seem so fragile yet come from such a dangerous world. The answer is that we're not adapted to survive Earth. We're adapted to conquer it. Vornax's crystalline structure was resonating at frequencies that suggested existential distress. But surely there are limits to this persistence? Marcus considered this. Well, we haven't figured out how to violate thermodynamics yet, but we're working on it. The joke fell completely flat. Nobody laughed. The thing is, Marcus continued, humans don't really believe in impossible. Difficult, yes. Dangerous, sure. Taking a really long time, absolutely. But impossible? That's just another problem to solve. He manipulated the display again, showing human colonies on worlds that other species had deemed uninhabitable. You see these colonies? Other species looked at these worlds and said, impossible to settle. Humans looked at them and said, challenging to settle. Then we figured out how to do it anyway. Dr. Vexheim was frantically taking notes. This explains the expansion rate. We assumed humans were reckless, but you're actually calculating that you can solve any problem given enough time and resources. Pretty much, Marcus agreed. We might not be the strongest or fastest species in the galaxy, but we're probably the most stubborn. When we want something, we don't give up. Ever. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Finally, Gloop 7 managed to speak, his gelatinous form trembling. Marcus, what do humans want from the galactic community? Marcus paused, the question seeming to catch him off guard. For a moment, his confident demeanor flickered, replaced by something more thoughtful and, perhaps, a little sad. You know what's funny? He said quietly. Most humans just want to be friends. We want to learn from you, share with you, explore the universe together. He looked around the room at his classmates, who were all staring at him with varying degrees of wariness. But I think you're starting to understand why that might be scarier than if we wanted to conquer you. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. A species that treated friendship with the same relentless persistence they applied to hunting and problem-solving. As the class began to file out, Zixtai approached Marcus hesitantly. Marcus, she said, her compound eyes reflecting uncertainty. When humans decide they want to be friends with someone, what happens if that someone doesn't want to be friends back? Marcus considered the question seriously. Historically, we keep trying to change their mind. We're very persistent about friendship too. As Zixtai left, looking deeply disturbed, Professor Kelthera approached Marcus. One more class, she said. Her skin a complex pattern of colors that conveyed deep academic excitement tinged with existential dread. Tomorrow, we discuss the implications of everything we've learned. Marcus nodded. Professor, are you sure you want to know? Some of this might be uncomfortable for the galactic community to hear. Professor Kelthera's skin shifted to determined blue. Science doesn't stop just because the truth is uncomfortable, Marcus. What else haven't you told us? Marcus's smile was gentle, but his eyes held depths that reminded her uncomfortably of the abyssal creatures he'd shown them. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we talk about what happens when a persistence predator achieves interstellar travel. The final lecture had drawn attention from the highest levels of galactic government. The Galactic Council had suspended regular sessions to observe, while security forces from a dozen species maintained discrete positions around the campus. The lecture hall itself had been expanded twice using emergency spatial compression technology, and still couldn't accommodate everyone who wanted to attend. Marcus had spent the previous night in protective custody, not because anyone thought he was dangerous, but because 3 different species had tried to kidnap him for detailed study. The Zilithian delegation had offered him a fortune to never reveal what he was planning to discuss. The Kytherian hive mind had petitioned for the lecture to be classified at the highest security levels. As he entered the lecture hall under escort, Marcus noticed the change in atmosphere immediately. Where previous sessions had been filled with academic curiosity tinged with growing unease, today felt like a tribunal. His classmates looked at him with expressions ranging from fascination to barely concealed fear, while the observers from various governments watched him with the intensity of beings trying to assess an existential threat. Professor Kelthera called for order, her skin cycling through colors so rapidly it was inducing motion sickness in several attendees. The past few days had transformed her from a respected xenobiologist into the most watched academic in the galaxy. Today, she announced, her voice carrying across the packed hall, we conclude our examination of Terran evolutionary pressures and their implications for the galactic community. She gestured to Marcus, who stood and approached the holographic display. The room fell so silent that the hum of life support systems seemed deafeningly loud. Over the past 4 sessions, Marcus began, his voice calm despite the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. We've discussed Earth's dangerous fauna, the extreme environments humans inhabit, and humanity's persistence hunting psychology. Today, I want to talk about what this means for all of you. He activated the display, showing a galactic map with human colonies marked in blue. The expansion pattern was clearly visible, a steady, inexorable spread from Earth outward. 50 years ago, humans achieved faster-than-light travel. 50 years. Most species take centuries or millennia to develop FTL after first contact. We did it in 5 decades. Dr. Vexheim leaned forward. You were highly motivated by the discovery that you weren't alone. Exactly, Marcus smiled. But there was something predatory in it now. We found new prey. The collective intake of breath from the audience was audible. Not you, Marcus clarified quickly, raising his hands. Ideas, concepts, technologies, the unknown itself. The display shifted to show human research stations, exploration vessels, and scientific outposts spreading across the galaxy. In 50 years, humans have established research facilities in 17 star systems, initiated first contact with 43 species, and contributed to breakthrough discoveries in fields ranging from quantum mechanics to biological synthesis. Glup 7, still somehow managing to attend despite his accumulated trauma, quivered uncertainly. This seems positive? Oh, it is, Marcus agreed. Humans are genuinely excited to be part of the galactic community. We're like children in a library the size of the universe. So many new things to learn, to understand, to figure out. He paused, looking around the room. But remember what I told you about persistence hunting. We don't just want to understand you. We want to understand everything about you. The holographic display changed to show human anthropological studies, linguistic research, cultural exchange programs, and scientific collaborations, hundreds of them, spreading across dozens of worlds. Humans have established cultural exchange programs with 36 species. We've learned 47 alien languages, documented cultural practices on 62 worlds, and integrated alien technologies into human society at an unprecedented rate. Zixdai's compound eyes were fixed on the data streams flowing across the display. The integration rate is unusual. Humans don't just adopt new technologies, Marcus explained. We adapt them, improve them, combine them with other technologies in ways their creators never imagined. It's not malicious, it's just how our brains work. We see something new, and we immediately start thinking about how to make it better, how to use it differently, how to solve problems it wasn't designed for. The display showed human modifications to alien technologies, faster ships, more efficient life support systems, hybrid communication networks that bridged incompatible species. For example, Marcus continued, the Vorthen gave us their gravity manipulation technology thinking we'd use it for space elevators. Instead, we combined it with Kytherian bioneural networks and created artificial gravity that responds to thought. The Silithai shared their light spectrum communication thinking we'd use it for data transmission. We combined it with human pattern recognition and created a universal translation system that works on emotion and context, not just words. Professor Kelthera's skin was shifting through colors that didn't have names. You're describing technological fusion at rates that should be impossible. Only if you think like a normal species, Marcus said. Humans don't think like normal species. We think like persistence hunters who've encountered a universe full of interesting problems to solve. The room was completely silent now, but it was the silence of beings contemplating implications too vast to fully comprehend. Here's what you need to understand, Marcus said, his voice taking on a different quality, still friendly, but with undertones that reminded everyone present of deep ocean trenches and things with too many teeth. Humans are genuinely peaceful. We don't want to conquer anyone or anything, but we do want to understand everything. And everything includes all of you. He manipulated the display again, showing human cultural research, behavioral studies, sociological analyses, and psychological profiles covering every known species in the galaxy. We study you the way we study everything else that interests us. Thoroughly, persistently, until we understand not just what you do, but why you do it, and how you might do it better. Vornax's crystalline structure was resonating at frequencies approaching panic. You're saying humans are studying us? We're saying humans are studying everything, Marcus corrected. It's not personal. It's just what we do. When we encounter something we don't understand, we don't leave it alone. We poke it, prod it, take it apart, put it back together, and figure out how it works. The display showed human research into alien psychology, sociology, biology, technology, art, philosophy, and culture. The scope was staggering. And once we understand something, Marcus continued, we start thinking about how to improve it, not because we think it's broken, but because improvement is what we do. It's our basic response to understanding anything. Dr. Vexheim was frantically scribbling notes. This explains the integration proposals. Humans aren't trying to assimilate other species. You're trying to optimize them. We prefer help, Marcus said with a slight smile. But yes, essentially, when we see inefficiencies or problems, we want to solve them. When we see potential improvements, we want to implement them. When we see suffering, we want to fix it. Here's what you need to understand, Marcus said, his voice taking on a different quality, still friendly, but with undertones that reminded everyone present of deep ocean trenches and things with too many teeth. Humans are genuinely peaceful. We don't want to conquer anyone or anything, but we do want to understand everything. And everything includes all of you. He manipulated the display again, showing human cultural research, behavioral studies, sociological analyses, and psychological profiles covering every known species in the galaxy. We study you the way we study everything else that interests us, thoroughly, persistently, until we understand not just what you do, but why you do it, and how you might do it better. Vornax's crystalline structure was resonating at frequencies approaching panic. You're saying humans are studying us? We're saying humans are studying everything, Marcus corrected. It's not personal. It's just what we do. When we encounter something we don't understand, we don't leave it alone. We poke it, prod it, take it apart, put it back together, and figure out how it works. The display showed human research into alien psychology, sociology, biology, technology, art, philosophy, and culture. The scope was staggering. And once we understand something, Marcus continued, we start thinking about how to improve it, not because we think it's broken, but because improvement is what we do. It's our basic response to understanding anything. Dr. Vexheim was frantically scribbling notes. This explains the integration proposals. Humans aren't trying to assimilate other species. You're trying to optimize them. We prefer help, Marcus said with a slight smile. But yes, essentially, when we see inefficiencies or problems, we want to solve them. When we see potential improvements, we want to implement them. When we see suffering, we want to fix it. The silence in the room was becoming oppressive. The thing is, Marcus continued, we're very good at this, and we don't really take no for an answer. Not because we're malicious, but because we don't really believe in impossible, remember? If you tell us something can't be improved, we hear challenging to improve. If you tell us to leave something alone, we hear interesting problem that requires a different approach. Squeaks made a sound that the translators rendered as the heat death of the universe. So here's what's going to happen, Marcus said, his tone becoming almost conversational. Humans are going to keep being friendly. We're going to keep offering to help. We're going to keep sharing our improvements and innovations. And we're going to keep studying everything we encounter. He looked around the room at the increasingly pale faces of his audience. And eventually, whether you want us to or not, we're going to figure out how to make your lives better. Because that's what persistence hunters do when they care about something. We don't give up. The implications hung in the air like a storm front. Finally, Gloop 7 managed to speak, his voice barely a whisper. What if we don't want your help? Marcus considered this seriously. Then we'll figure out why you don't want help, address those concerns, and find a way to help you that you'll accept. We're very persistent about helping people too. The room erupted in nervous chatter as species representatives began urgent consultations with their governments. Professor Kelthera raised her hand for silence, her skin now a steady, determined blue. Marcus, one final question. In your assessment, what should the galactic community expect from humanity in the coming centuries? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of inevitable truth. Humans are going to solve every problem we encounter. We're going to improve every system we see. We're going to make friends with every species we meet, whether they want to be friends or not. We're going to explore every mystery, answer every question, and fix everything we think is broken. He paused, looking directly at the government observers. We're going to do this because we care about you, all of you, and humans are very, very persistent about things we care about. The lecture hall was so quiet that several people wondered if the life support systems had failed. The good news, Marcus added, is that when we're done, everyone's lives will be better. The concerning news, depending on your perspective, is that you don't really get a choice in the matter. We've never met a problem we couldn't solve given enough time and stubbornness. As the session ended and the hall began to empty, species representatives immediately activated emergency communication channels. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. 3 different species initiated cultural preservation protocols. Professor Kelthera approached Marcus as he gathered his materials. Marcus, she said, her skin cycling through complex patterns, do you realize what you've just done? Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. I answered your questions about human behavior and its implications for galactic society. Isn't that what education is for? She stared at him for a moment, then began to laugh. A sound like crystal chimes in a gentle breeze. You know what the terrifying part is? She said. You genuinely think you're being helpful. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in 5 days, it was completely without any predatory undertones. It was warm, genuine, and absolutely certain. Professor, he said, we are being helpful. You'll see. As he left the lecture hall, Marcus could hear the emergency council sessions already beginning. Species across the galaxy grappling with the realization that they had welcomed a species of persistence predators who considered helping to be a form of hunting. Behind him, Professor Kelthera stared at the holographic display, where Earth continued its serene rotation, looking deceptively peaceful and blue and harmless. Note to self, she murmured. Update threat assessment protocols to include species that weaponize friendship. But even as she said it, she found herself curious about human proposals for improving Silithai education systems. The information packet had arrived that morning, and despite everything, the ideas looked genuinely helpful. She was already being hunted, she realized. And the most terrifying part was that she was starting to look forward to being caught. 6 months later, the Galactic Council had established the Human Integration Monitoring Commission, but they needn't have bothered. Humans had volunteered to monitor themselves and provide regular reports on their activities. The reports were thorough, transparent, and utterly terrifying in their scope. Human cultural exchange programs were now active in 73 star systems. Human technological assistance initiatives had solved energy crises on 12 worlds. Human friendship outreach protocols had ended 3 different interspecies conflicts through what they called aggressive mediation, and Marcus Chun had become the galaxy's first professor of applied human studies, teaching packed lecture halls of students who were simultaneously fascinated and terrified by the species that had turned helpfulness into an art form. In his office, Marcus kept a small holographic display showing a great white shark in eternal patrol. Visitors often asked about it. It reminds me, he would explain, that the most dangerous predators are often the ones their prey never see coming. Then he would smile that warm, friendly, absolutely relentless human smile and ask if there was anything he could help them with. The answer, of course, was always yes. Humans could help with anything, whether you wanted them to or not.